Saint William Grant was a Jamaican trade unionist and labor activist who encouraged and advocated for workers' rights, protection, and adequate payment. For his activism, he was arrested, beaten, and jailed, but remained resilient. He championed the rights of the black race hand in hand with Marcus Garvey. He advocated for the working class with Alexander Bustamante. Saint William Grant was an extraordinary man. Born in the 1890s, he, as a strong young black man, fought as a soldier in the British Army in World War I. Ambitious, strong-headed, and selfless, he had left his own indelible mark in the history of Jamaica. In 1974, he was awarded the Order of Distinction for his outstanding and important services to Jamaica. In 1977, Victoria Park in downtown Kingston was renamed St. William Grant Park to honor William Grant's significant role in Jamaica labor movement. In this video, I will be looking at the death registration form of St. William Grant to examine the cause of his death over 40 years ago. This is a very interesting and informative video, so please watch to the end. Welcome to Jamaican Chapter. This is the death registration form of St. William Grant. I will start with the form by looking at the top. At the top of the form it says Death Registration Form, Death in the District of, and they stamped University Hospital of the West Indies, Parish St. Andrew. Let us start at the side of the form, the left side of the form, where it says Place of Death, University Hospital of the West Indies. And across from there, it says Usual Residence of Deceased. And they put 155 Church Street, Kingston. Now, the usual residence of deceased means this is the place that the individual used to live prior to death. And in St. William Grant's case, he was living at 155 Church Street, Kingston, prior to his death. I'm going to move back over to the left side of the form and go down. On the left side of the form, in this section, it says Particulars of Deceased. Date of death, 28th October 1977. In other words, date of death is August 28, 1977. For many of you who saw August 27th on Wikipedia, I would say you should rather go with the death registration form, because the death registration form was closer to William Grant's death. It was filled out at the time of his death. Wikipedia, on the other hand, came years after. So I believe when Wikipedia says August 27th was the date of his death, I think that's incorrect. I will go with the death registration form. And it said date of death, the 28th August 1977, which in simpler term is August 28, 1977. That's the date of his death. Below that it says full name William Grant. Yes, that was his full name. Sex, they have male, so we all know he was male. Beside that it says condition married. So yes, St. William Grant was married at the time of his death. He was married to a woman called Isilda May Grant. That was the name of his wife, Isilda May Grant. And in fact, she was the one who filled out this death registration. Not fill out, but she is the one who signed this death registration form. If you go down to the bottom of the form, you will see it here, the part that it talks about informant. It says informant Isilda May Grant. Then it says qualification, and it is written widow. You can obviously see that they put wife, but then they remember, okay, she's now a widow. And below that, you see signature of informant. You see Isilda May Grant. So she was his wife, and she lived at the same address with him. If you look over on the other side here, it says residence. I think it's just an apartment, because you see apartment 116, and then it says 155 Church Street, Kingston. So she and her husband, William Grant, were living at 155 Church Street, Kingston. So yes, William Grant was married, and his wife's name was Isilda May Grant. We're gonna still continue at the left of the form where I left off. Below marriage, it says age, and his age is listed as 83. Below that, you see occupation or calling, and they wrote watchman. Yes, that is true. He was a watchman. But before he was a watchman, his first job was as a dock worker. And a dock worker is a manual worker who loads and unloads ships and trucks. So he's working by the sea, unloading ships and, vehicles. So that was his first job as a young man. He worked as a dock worker. Later, he worked as a soldier. His second job was a soldier. So during World War One, he stowed away to England, where he joined the British West Indies Regiment. And this was a unit in the British Army during World War One. The British West Indies Regiment was made up of black men from the British colonies in the Caribbean. It was easy for William Grant to join because the British was recruiting, desperately recruiting black men to fight in the war, World War One. So it was easy when he went to England to simply join the army. So he first worked as a dock worker, then he joined the British Army, and after the war, William Grant returned to Jamaica. In 1920, he immigrated to New York, USA. There he worked as a cook. And it is said that he was an excellent cook. This man learned how to cook from the people he grew up with. He wasn't formally trained, but he was an excellent cook. While working as a cook in New York, he got involved in the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA. Now, as we all know, the UNIA was founded by Marcus Messiah Garvey. William Grant and Garvey got along very well for many years. But in 1934, a big disagreement between the both of them led to Garvey expelling Grant from the organization. So how it happened was that William Grant was in New York. So there was to be a convention in Jamaica, and Grant was sent as a delegate. When he was here at the 1934 convention, William Grant, he was a strong-headed man. He stood for what he believed in. And some of the things he was saying, Garvey did not agree with it. And he still stood by what he was saying. So it led to a disagreement, and Garvey expelled Grant from the organization. So after being expelled from the UNIA, he was in Jamaica, so he just stayed here in Jamaica. And that was 1934. He continued to work as a cook from 1934 until 1950 while being a labor activist and a trade unionist. In 1938, while dock workers of the United Fruit Company were on strike, the labor activist William Grant, he fueled the protests with fiery speeches, telling the people, protest on, you need better condition, you need better pay, And for this, he was arrested. He was beaten by some police officers. He was charged and he was jailed along with another labor activist and trade unionist called Alexander Bustamante. Both William Grant and Alexander Bustamante were later released with the help of The famous lawyer Norman Manley. In 1947, William Grant tried his hand at representational politics when he ran for councillor in the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation election. But he did not win. He did not win. And he never tried again. He never tried his hand at politics again. In 1950, he began working as a watchman, a job he held until near his death when he got very ill. So, on his death registration form, they put what he was working as before he died, and that was as a watchman. And he was working as a watchman in Kingston at one of the government's agency's office. I don't remember what it is. But yes, he was doing that job. Let's continue. Below that it says Birthplace, and they wrote St. Andrew. And that is true. William Grant was born in a rural community called Brandon Hill in St. Andrew in 1894. Not much has been told about his birth, other than that he was born in 1894. All right, so let's continue now by looking over the right side of the death registration form, where we should see the cause of death. So over on the right side on this section it says cause of death, and we have myocardial infarction, and it says he suffered from this for 4 days. So what is myocardial infarction? Myocardial infarction is an extremely dangerous condition that happens because of a lack of blood flow to the heart muscle. The lack of blood flow can occur because of many different factors, but is usually related to a blockage in one or more of the heart's arteries. Myocardial infarction is commonly called a heart attack. So we can simply say that St. William Grant died from a heart attack. Thanks for watching, and remember to like, comment, or subscribe for more interesting videos like this.